finally happy to receive those CoolerMaster cases. Let's check them out. Alright, so this is the H500P. I think this will be my new airflow case. I've been so excited for this one. And then we have C700P. It's the new Cosmos case. Alright, unpacking is finished. So exactly how awesome is the new Cosmos? Let's find out right after this. Creativity is fueled by the best instruments. It doesn't always come easy, and in the process you often realize how important quality is. The RD400 by OCZ gives you quality and speed with M.2 interface, Toshiba NAND flash, and a PCI bracket, making it possible to focus on what matters. Invest in storage that makes a difference, with a 5-year advanced warranty. Alright, so the new Cosmos C700P is CoolerMaster's most anticipated release of the year, aside from the H500P of course, and for a good reason. We finally get a refreshed Cosmos that is modern, it's got character like no other, and promises all the relevant features for a 2017 release, and of course its expected premium price of $299 once again is targeting that niche water cooling and modding community with now bigger shoes to fill based on the Cosmos past. The structure is a mix of materials that work very well together visually, thanks to that beautiful gray color coordination on the plastics and the aluminum. But there's one thing that throws off this whole quality color coordination balance out of the window, and that's all the metal surfaces on the exterior and on the interior. They're way too easily to get just covered in finger marks, and it just doesn't look good after a single assembly. So it's a bummer that they're not treated with anything like the plastics have that look fantastic, whereas the metal don't. The aluminum feet and handles are now a staple, of course, resembling skis attachment, like it's about to head down a snowy cliff with excellent curvature on either side to complement the front and rear plastic pieces. And the case is already super heavy, so you'd appreciate the awesome paint job that hides all that plastic underneath it. Now the top handles on my unit arrived slightly loose, which is weird, but this also highlights the modularity of the frame, so you could potentially take them off if you wish to experiment with the modding abilities. And of course, they are part of the Cosmos design language and are confidently used for transport. The tempered glass side panel is curved, and this is a big deal because the yields to create that front curvature, we are told, are super low. So it looks kind of cool with this dual angle reflection, but since the other side panel is a simple matte metal, it kind of loses that left to right uniformity, but it sure must have been extra difficult getting both side panels to be that curved glass. The tint on the glass is really not to my taste. It's a little bit too dark and really can't see inside, and also has that green cast on the window, so I wish that it was more neutral. Now both side panels are magnetic and open up like these luxury car doors and can be lifted off the rear hinges that make the frame much lighter during assembly. The front I/O is absolutely loaded with power and reset, 2 fan settings, and lighting customization. Of course, it's 2017, and finally it's up to the task for a serious motherboard with 4 USB 3 ports and a Gen 2 Type-C port, so you can feel secure with all your external storage needs. And you can even build your own USB drive with a Type-C interface, which is Gen 2, using M.2 SSD. So if you're interested to see how that's done, make sure to check it out here. The lighting on this case is quite unique with these ambient portions in top and bottom. It's a little bit too much for me personally. I prefer more subtle lighting, but here it kind of makes sense where the enclosure itself is that showpiece. And I love how the handles are sort of part of that light show with interesting reflections and softening out that light spill. The colors are vibrant, and despite the large sections, uniformity is fantastic, and the inclusion of a 4-pin RGB connector is brilliant, so you can control the color from your motherboard. And by the way, any of the 3 sections can be disconnected as well from the hub if it's too much for you. The front section opens up like this to reveal a removable dust filter that isn't super fine, and I think that's on purpose to limit the airflow bottleneck because that front portion is very close to the dust filter. Behind there is a removable fan bracket with 2 140mm fans included, so mounting a 280mm radiator is not a problem, and this bracket also supports a 360 rad with some flexible mounting points, so that's awesome. And you can even go with a triple triple 140mm fan setup or a 420mm radiator on this bracket. So I'm very happy to see water cooling taken into account with user friendliness in mind using these brackets. And you can see just how open that entire front section is with 90mm of space between the frame and the closest drive caddy. So in total, we have 3 140mm fans included. But why are they these fans? CoolerMaster has much better quality fans, and at $299 price point, I mean, the beautiful enclosure is one thing, but having sort of a full package that feels complete is another thing. And most likely users will be replacing the fans with their own, but still it would have been great to see some quality fans included here instead of these reference fans that are included in all of their cases. Now this next portion got me confused because we have dual 5¼ bay covers on the dust filter, but there's only a single 5¼ drive bay. So for example, moving it down is not really an option because it will be blocked by the fan bracket and it doesn't fully align with the mounting locations. And you also have to remove it in order to install a 360 radiator at the top. And I find that wasteful because it doesn't take advantage of the whole modularity aspect that this case tries to bring forward. And so this could be a sign that some of these features were rushed out and not completely refined before release. Up top, the dust cover is removable, and just like at the front, this bracket is mounted with 2 screws, and it's actually identical to what we find at the front, so all the same radiator and cooling options apply. And this design thinking has definitely been influenced by their Master Case series, and it's so refreshing to finally have a Cosmos case that is ready for user-friendly enthusiast water cooling. Checking out the interior, at first glance it looks a bit weird with these large metal covers at the bottom and the front. There is an SSD mount on the side of the shroud with proper cable cutout, and the shroud itself is not secured on the opposite side, so it's a bit wobbly. The other piece has these cutouts to perhaps showcase the reservoir behind it, but what I find really odd is the inclusion of only 2 drive brackets. It's like they went to the other extreme for storage. The previous Cosmos had 11 drive brackets, and this one only has 2. They sit on this modular system, which is great, but no additional accessories are included. The power supply has its own elevated platform. That's because the case is so tall you can reposition one of the fan brackets here for airflow, and no worries about the dust as it's fully covered. To me, this dual cover design is not ideal because if you remove the front portion to potentially highlight your water cooling hardware, the power supply shroud is on its own and doesn't look that great. It's fully open at the front and you wouldn't really do much in form of hiding your cables. On the other side, we also have some strange decisions, like the 2 SSD caddies, one of which is already occupied with a fan controller and a lighting hub. So, I mean, there's plenty of space in here, so why occupy one of the precious drive brackets? On top of that, we also have this not so easy to remove metal cover near the front that makes no sense to hide this section because it's not like you'll be routing an army of cables to that part of the case. Although it's a perfect way to hide the mess that's there by default. But the C700P is one of the few enclosures that take advantage of that fully modular frame and that you can inverse the motherboard tray orientation if you want the system on your left side. And because the side panels are symmetrical, you can simply swap them accordingly. Now, the procedure to inverse the motherboard tray is frustrating. The user manual sucks. There are no visual guides on the actual frame on where each piece should be aligned to. You know, Be Quiet got this right with their color-coded screws on the Dark Base 900. So the procedure is less frustrating. And the one thing I will say about the Cosmos is that the frame has so much potential for refinement because of the mounting locations on all 4 sides. You can do a lot with that. You can even rotate the motherboard tray 90 degrees with some optional accessories. Alright, so the motherboard is now inverted. So by default, CoolerMaster suggests for you to move the power supply plate to the top, so it's going to be above here. But because of these holes here, you can simply align the motherboard the way you want and have the power supply still in the bottom, which is great. This is how, let's say, I would position myself, my system. The GPU's up here, maybe extra fans on the top to help with the GPU airflow. But because the case is so tall, of course, you can still position the radiators in the bottom this way. And yeah, just as long as you take your time and be patient in terms of rotating these components, you should be okay. I am surprised they have not added dual system compatibility, as there is room for an ITX system in here somewhere, and thanks to that fully modular structure, it's not totally out of question, so perhaps we'll see that later on. I feel like this is the best Cosmos case so far, but unfortunately, like every other case in this lineup, some things just don't make sense for the target audience. To me, it feels like the project of two teams who don't communicate. You give us modularity on the frame level with fantastic water cooling options, but totally lose track with paneling that will hide all that open goodness in the front and give no effort in cable management. I think the power supply shroud should have spanned that entire bottom section that usually looks better, and have a smaller panel to cover up that top section that you can potentially take out to show your radiator, to show your drives and reservoir. It's like CoolerMaster has put so much thought into redesigning the exterior so it feels fresh and, giving us all these modular options, but not giving them refinement that is needed for this price point and for the target audience. For example, if the shroud made contact with the motherboard, it will allow for less dispersion of those cables in the bottom. And I know this is difficult to do because the motherboard tray has multiple mounting locations, but some form of cover up top would be nice too, to control how cables bend over the tray. eATX motherboards will fit no problem, and as usual, a case of this caliber requires some form of custom water cooling, and the dual fan bracket will handle that no problem. Moving over to the back, I actually moved that metal piece closer to the middle to cover up this area where most of the cables are concentrated, so if you're feeling lazy, this is an option. Alright, so that is my experience with the C700P. I'm happy with the direction they're taking that whole modular approach to the next level. So not just replacing your drives and replacing the side panels on our previous cases, now we have that entire structure that has all the mounting points around it, so you could potentially do anything with it, and I'm really excited to see where CoolerMaster will take that idea. My two things that I'm not happy with, and CoolerMaster certainly has to improve, are the coating on the metal is just a huge fingerprint magnet, and I don't like the panels at all inside. That is, the power supply shroud and that side panel. I wish that the power supply shroud was a single piece by itself, along with the smaller piece for the top section, so that way you can cover up all that bottom area and not really worry about covering up this area that you potentially want to highlight. And if you leave just the power supply shroud, it looks weird. And number two is refinement. CoolerMaster definitely has to improve the user manual. It's complete. It's just not acceptable to have something like this on such an expensive case and such a complex enclosure where you have all these mounting options and things, and then move that into the case itself. Have visual indicators on where to install the motherboard and how these different pieces sort of come up to create these different interior layouts for the Cosmos. Alright, so that is it for my review. Let me know what you think of the case down in the comments below, and do you think the Cosmos line has revived based on this release? I think so, but I'm curious to hear what you think. I'm Dmitry, thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out these other relevant videos, and we'll see you in the next video.